Hey everyone, Steve Moon here, your San Jose realtor. And today I've got some news that might actually put a little smile on your face if you live in an HOA community in California, and that's some 50,000 communities out there. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever received one of those HOA violation letters and thought to yourself, this is crazy, absolutely crazy? Look, I understand that some HOAs operate reasonably. They maintain neighborhood aesthetics, organize community events, and ensure that residents don't make any crazy types of property modifications that would hurt the community. However, many of these associations have completely overstepped their boundaries and are essentially terrorizing homeowners simply because they are able to. Let me share some real life stories that just demonstrate how out of control these types of situations have become. Keep in mind that these aren't fictional stories, these are actual things that happen to real homeowners trying to live their lives. Consider this scenario. You're a homeowner who decides to replace an interior door in your own condominium. Seems perfectly reasonable, right? Well, a California woman did exactly that, and her HOA spotted that door through an open garage during an inspection, and they immediately imposed a $100 fine that escalated into $500 a day with penalties. And so we're talking about $3,500 a week for a door modification that caused no harm to anyone else within the community. But the harassment didn't really stop there. They later fined her for installing an EV charger, essentially penalizing her for making an environmentally conscious choice, right? And also for having her dog off leash. By the time this whole ordeal concluded, she was facing thousands of dollars of accumulated penalties. Here's another case that perfectly illustrates this absurdity. In 2024, a Bay Area family faced a $200 fine daily because of their teenager's work vehicle was being parked in their own driveway. The young man worked part-time for a local landscaping company, and the HOA classified his work truck as a commercial vehicle without really giving into their explanation. This demonstrates how arbitrary rule interpretations can financially punish a family for their children's part-time work employment situation. It was something that could have been worked out between the HOA and the family. It was a part-time work situation. Something could have been worked out. And perhaps the worst case, an elderly veteran in Orange County was subjected to $50 daily fine for displaying an American flag that the HOA deemed to be oversized. And when the community members organized peacefully to support him, the HOA threatened the man with additional penalties for creating disturbances. So this case highlights how enforcement can become arbitrary and vindictive, which makes the situation much worse than it has to be. Now, I recognize that hearing these types of stories probably creates some frustration. That was certainly my reaction. However, California has finally implemented some meaningful legislative reform to address these types of abuses. They enacted Assembly Bill 130, or AB 130, and frankly, this represents a long overdue intervention in these types of situations. Governor Newsom signed the legislation in late June, with the implementation beginning July 1st, so it just happened. If you're currently navigating HOA conflicts, this law provides substantial new protections for you. Let me break down this new law for you. First, fines are now limited to $100 per violation. So this stops HOAs from charging bigger and bigger penalties on a daily basis that used to put homeowners in some serious debt by placing liens on their property for these fines. Remember that woman who got in trouble over her door? Under AB 130, she'd only pay $100 in total. not thousands that she was having to deal with. Second, HOAs can't add late fees or interest to these fines anymore. This stops them from turning a small problem into a huge bill that keeps growing and growing and sometimes can lead to foreclosures triggered by these huge penalties and fines. Third, the law says that the HOAs have to give homeowners a real chance to fix the problem before they start punishing them. You can either fix any of the issues before any board meetings or show that you're seriously trying to solve the problem. This stops the HOAs from trapping people with surprise fines. Fourth, if you and your HOA still disagree after the hearing, you can ask for help to work the deals out. Any deal that you make gets written down, signed by all parties, and becomes legally binding. And this stops HOAs from bothering you about problems that are already solved or addressed. Finally, HOA boards have to tell you their decisions within 14 days of the hearing, and it used to be 15. This may not sound like much, but it stops the boards from leaving homeowners hanging while they wait to find out what's going to be happening with them. Caveat: this law doesn't help with fines from before July 1st. Things still count. But moving forward from then, homeowners have much better protection on their side. Now, you may be thinking, won't this just make people break rules more since $100 isn't a lot of money for a lot of people? And that's a fair point. The law does handle this by letting HOAs charge more than $100 when rules or rule breaking creates real health or safety problems. But here's the catch: HOAs have to prove these dangers exist by writing it down and talking about it at public meetings where everyone is able to be put on notice. This stops HOAs from secretly deciding to charge huge fines. And some people worry that the $100 limit will make it harder for HOAs to enforce rules and may encourage people to keep breaking them. There's also confusion about the law as it doesn't clearly explain what happens with repeat rule breakers or violations that go on for multiple days, which could lead to more conflicts instead of fewer. But I think the main idea here is about being fair to everyone involved. We shouldn't let families go broke over things like lawn care or small rule violations like that. For residents who are really causing problems, the HOAs still have other options. They can try mediation, they can take legal actions, or use community pressures or shame. The goal is to make the system more balanced instead of just being all about punishment from above coming down. The reality is that most homeowners aren't attempting to damage their community's character. They simply want to deal with reasonable rules applied consistently and fairly. AB 130 doesn't eliminate HOA authority. It prevents most egregious abuses that transformed neighborhood associations into more like authoritarian regimes now. AB 130 caps most HOA fines at $100 per violation. The legislation addresses excessive penalties that were financially devastating for some homeowners. And the law requires HOAs to provide clearer enforcement mechanisms and better appeal processes for residents disputing these fines. However, associations can still impose higher penalties for health or safety violations, maintaining their authority over serious community issues. AB 130 attempts to balance homeowner protection with community governance needs. It eliminates punitive enforcement practices while preserving HOA's legitimate role in maintaining neighborhood standards and safety practices. And although there may be implementation challenges, the law itself represents a meaningful reform in an area where homeowners previously felt powerless and frequently against potentially abusive HOA practices. It's a good thing. So what do you think? Is AB 130 the big fix that California homeowners really needed? Or is it just the first step in solving bigger problems with how HOAs work overall? Are you dealing with any HOA that's being unfair to you? If so, let me hear your experience in the comments below. And if this explanation of AB 130 helped you understand your new rights as a California homeowner, please help the channel out by liking the video and hitting that subscribe button for more videos about real estate and real estate related laws that may affect your home. So enjoy the rest of the day and see you in the next video.